All right, I want to talk about some of the tips in connecting with journalists, what I call being professionally persistent. Sometimes I'll use the not so elegant phrase of ambushing somebody. But what you need to do is first, of course, make your media list, and you absolutely have to look at journalists, whether this is print, television, radio, blogs, doesn't matter. You need to find folks for a particular publication that are writing about your industry segment. So for us, that's female entrepreneurship, small business, things around local content. So who is writing about small businesses for that particular publication? Get all their contact information, put it in your database, and number one, connect with them on LinkedIn, write them a nice note. When they accept your LinkedIn invite, say thank you, and maybe a follow-up of, here's what I do. If I have any story ideas I think might be good for your readers, watchers, listeners, may I send you that information? Very short and sweet. Follow them on Twitter and then add them also to a Twitter list. So I have public and private lists. So I'll have a private list called, local journalists, and then I'll have a public list called something like, journalists who I admire, or great journalists, or something that's a bit bragocious, because when you follow that particular journalist, and of course you're going to retweet and comment on some of their tweets and things of that nature, but they're also going to see in that sort of ambush, professional persistence, that they've been added to a list called Amazing Journalists or whatever it is. So it's just like another little area to essentially, let them know that you're paying attention to them. Also, you want to be commenting on their articles. So make sure that if there's anything relevant, this is not the time to showboat, but just authentically, that was a great article. I really appreciate the perspective on this, that type of thing. Even sharing that article too, if you are following them, Twitter, LinkedIn, and tagging them is a great way to get their attention as well. You should also be setting up a Google alert for that particular journalist. So just their name in quotation marks. And so you're going to be getting delivery from Google Alerts for anything that they're writing that's new, that's coming up. When you think about your media list, you want to think about perhaps targeting maybe just 5 publications. I'm not suggesting that you have a list, of hundreds of journalists. That's not going to be realistic to follow, but pick a top 3 to 5 and then really start to pay attention. It's all about building a relationship with this individual and being known to them as somebody who can bring them good content. So let's assume that you do have a story idea and you are ready to approach that journalist with that very simple email. Doesn't need to be a full press release by any means, but it's hi so-and-so, I've really enjoyed your work, following you over the last few months. I've got this story or news or something, whatever it is you're pitching, would you be interested in learning more? Just very brief. Make sure your subject line is really, really clear and catchy, and use a program like HubSpot to track when that journalist is opening that email. You'll be able to see a number of times how often they've opened it, how many times they looked at it, that kind of thing. So to be able to follow up if you've seen them open it a few times. If you haven't seen them open it, you can send it again or try to tweet them with the information. I will say, and my last and final tip on going back to the social media side is oftentimes journalists will respond on Twitter more so than to emails. A lot of journalists really, really still use Twitter. And so don't just rely on the email to them, also tweet them about it as well. And, it's kind of publicly outing them, so to speak. One little side tip on that that you probably know, but just in case, if you start off your tweet with that, tagging that person, only people that are connected to the two of you are going to see it. So sometimes you'll see a tweet that starts with a period and then the @ to tag that particular person. That's so it's a little bit more public, so to speak. Just a little bit of a side note. And finally, the name of the game is follow up. Don't assume that if you pitch a journalist once, they're going to respond. It takes time, so you have to be professionally persistent and follow up with that journalist a number of times, again, through a number of different channels. If you see they're active on other areas, a Facebook page perhaps, maybe they have a page for their journalism career, then like that and comment there. Whatever you can do to get their attention and softly stay in front of them, that's what's eventually going to give you that opportunity to get picked up.